Hey guys, one of our patrons has asked for this video about the current discussions about the two-tier pricing system in Japan. So here it is. So in 2025 there were 42.8 million tourists visited Japan from other countries, which is a record. That's the first time it's been over 40 million. It's sort of been going up every year. So a huge record, 42.8 million people, which is about 25% of what Japan's population is. So it's pretty amazing. So obviously there's been a lot of benefits to that. That's brought a lot of money into Japan. The tourism industry is really good for Japan's economy, and you know, different businesses and so on, employment and all those sorts of things have benefited from that. Other people have seen disadvantages of it. So for example, some places that we like to go, now when we go there, there's busloads of tourists, which, you know, some people don't like their favourite places to be full of tourists, which is sort of understandable, isn't it? So it's a really complex thing. What our friend was asking about was the two-tier pricing system. So what we've seen is, I mean, forever there's been some, you know, restaurants and a small percentage, very small number of restaurants in Ryokan and other places that have charged extra to foreign tourists, charged the foreign tourists more than they've charged the locals. That's sort of always been a bit of a thing for us from a small number of businesses. However, what we've seen is an increase in that and becoming on a bigger scale. So there's a theme park in Okinawa that apparently now has a two-tier pricing system where they charge foreign tourists more than they charge local people. Something that's a little bit unclear with this too, with what I'm about to talk about, is when they say foreign tourists, I mean, I'm a foreigner, and if I leave this area I live in and go to another part of Japan, I'm a tourist, aren't I? So that makes me a foreign tourist too. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys actually administer it. You know, if someone turns up and they're here for a month from another country, clearly a foreign tourist. If I turn up with my Japanese family, right, are they going to charge me extra? So that'll be interesting to see what's a foreign tourist. Are they going to call it residents, which means, you know, I'm a resident. Residents versus foreign tourists. It'll be interesting to see. You know, obviously with private businesses, it's up to them what they decide their rule is. Now, obviously some people are getting very upset about this and saying it's discrimination, which clearly it is. If you charge one group of people more money than another group of people, clearly that's discrimination. But the argument probably is, what's reasonable discrimination, what isn't, you know? So my thinking's always been with this sort of thing, and I've mentioned it on previous videos, if you think you're getting unfair treatment from some business or some organisation, then I've always said, vote with your wallet. So if some business has a two-tiered pricing system and you object to it, you can protest it by not going there, you know, because literally protesting is a real waste of time. It's not going to do anything. You know, we've mentioned this in lots of previous videos about stuff in Japan. If there's something in Japan you don't like, you know, foreigners protesting stuff in Japan is not going to make any difference at all. You can if you want to. You know, you can get placards and stand outside the theme park and protest against the unfair discrimination. You can do that if you want to, but it won't change anything. In actual fact, it'll probably do us more damage, because people go, oh, there's the foreigners making waves again, you know, and that's the way they'd see it. I mean, you're welcome to do it if you want to, but that's the way they'd see it. What sort of lifted this a little bit more into the public eye recently is the government has said that they're considering a two-tiered pricing system for their national museums. So, you know, one price for the Japanese people, one price for a higher price for the foreign tourists, which that's even more complicated, because the national museums are obviously funded by the government, which is funded by taxes, which means those of us who live here, Japanese people who live here and paying taxes, it's their taxes that are paying for the museums. Whereas someone that's only coming here for a couple of weeks haven't paid the taxes that have paid for the museums. So some people could argue that that it's fair that national museums, that Japanese people should pay less than foreign tourists, for that reason, for the reason that they've already paid their taxes. So it's a complicated issue, isn't it? So I think we're going to see more of it, because I think Himeji Castle recently was talking about it too, and you can sort of see there's another side to this as well. It sort of makes sense in a way. Himeji Castle is the most popular castle in Japan, most likely. It's amazing. It's World Heritage listed, and it's definitely one of the best castles, if not the best castle in Japan. And it's a huge tourist thing. And I can remember going there, 25 years ago, and it was a little bit busy, but not too bad. But now it's ridiculous. They've got huge car parks full of buses and just huge numbers of people. So they're talking about putting their prices up. Probably the thinking is, if they put the prices up for foreign tourists and get less foreign tourists as a result, they'd probably be happy with that, to have less people there, but still getting the same income from less people is probably not a bad thing, because it would actually make going there a better experience. Because going there when there's busloads of people queued up, it really sort of spoils it a bit, So you can sort of see it. Another aspect of this, of course, too, is at the moment the yen is really weak, the weakest it's been for a long time. So if you look at how many yen your money from your country is buying at the moment, is possibly going to be at a record high, which means that if you're coming to visit Japan from another country, it's already cheap. Japan is cheaper than a lot of other countries, to eat and stay and tour and so on. But with the weak yen, it's made it even cheaper. So in the big picture, I mean, if it was to our friend at Patreon that was asking me about it, I don't think it's going to make much difference to you, because if you pay a little bit extra to get into some places or to eat at some places, or the paying more at restaurants thing's pretty rare. That's not likely to happen. But if you go to a museum or go to Himeji Castle or go to some tourist place where they charge you a little bit extra because you're a foreigner, or quite a bit extra. One place I was heard they're talking about charging 2 or 3 times more for the foreign tourists than they charge the locals. But when you add it all up with what it actually costs to be here and eat here and tour here and so on, it's still not going to make much difference. In actual fact, it's probably cheaper this year than it would have been last year because of the weak yen. So it's a complicated thing. Shogunai keeps coming to mind. Japanese people say shogunai, and it's what they say when something can't be helped. It's just the way it is. And with things like this, I tend not to fight against it. I mean, some people say you should stand up and you should fight and you should protest and you should do that. Yeah, if you want to do that, you can. But it's been my experience that foreigners protesting or complaining about stuff in Japan doesn't have a positive result. Doesn't fix anything. It just makes it worse. So, if you really feel strongly about it, my thinking would be, if you feel strongly about it, don't go to places that have 2-tier pricing systems. If you get on the internet and before you go somewhere and you see that they've got different prices for foreigners, and if you really object to that, don't go there, would be my suggestion. From my own point of view, if there's somewhere I really want to go in the big picture, if I have to pay more than my family have to, which would be really weird. If that ever happens, I'll make a video and tell you about it. I can't imagine how they're going to do that. If I turn up there and they're going to go, oh, you're foreign, you're going to pay more, and your wife and kids they pay the lower rate. To be honest with you, I'd just pay it. It's what do they say, swings and merry-go-rounds. You got on this hand you got this, but on that hand you got that. Still, living in Japan is amazingly cheap compared with what it is in other countries. So, and when you're on holidays, I'd much rather see them increase the price of entrance to a museum for foreigners than increase the price of bread or the price of rice or something that's going to affect families and old people and affect the general population. You know what I mean? It's the same as in Australia. The tax on alcohol and tobacco has always been extremely high. The price of a bottle of bourbon in Australia is like 3 or 4 times the price of the same bottle of bourbon in Japan because of the taxes. And it's the same sort of thing. It's sort of a luxury tax, right? So, and again, people argue this, but I've been asked for my opinion, and my opinion is that you know, tourism, when you're on holidays, that's your sort of that's your non-essential cost of living, isn't it? You know what I mean? So if it costs more for people that are coming here internationally on holidays, that's obviously a better thing than you know, old people having to pay more for their rice, if you see what I mean. So, but subjects like this always have a whole range of opinions happening. You know, people have the different opinions and they're entitled to them. In this case, I was asked for mine. That was mine. It's a shogunai. If they charge more, they charge more. If you don't like it, don't spend the money. You know, don't go there. Go somewhere else if you don't like it. But in the big picture, to our friend on Patreon, you know, you're not going to notice much difference, I don't think. You know, this is sort of a relatively new thing, the two-tiered pricing system. I haven't experienced it firsthand yet. I'm hearing about it and I know it exists, but I've never experienced it. You know, and Japan's still cheap. You know, food and living here, visiting here is cheap. So in the big picture, I don't think it's going to affect you too much. To those others that always go on about how we should protest and fight and everything, you're welcome to. If you want to get some placards and stand outside some of these national museums and protest the discrimination, you're welcome to. But I suggest it wouldn't do you any good. It's not going to do any of us any good. It's just going to, there's foreigners making problems again. You know what I mean? It sort of strengthens the bigots' argument. The bigots that go on about how bad the foreigners are. If foreigners protest, it's sort of, the bigots go, see, told you foreigners are trouble. Look at them protesting. So, you know, it's not the way to improve things in Japan. It's not the way it works here. So anyway, our friend asked for some feedback about it. There it is. Don't worry about it, mate. Just come and have a great time. Enjoy yourself. No doubt you will. More videos coming soon.